Hey, what is going on, everyone? This is your host, TARODCAST, and you are listening to another episode of TARODCAST. To all the new listeners out there who are listening to us for the very first time, welcome. For all the returning listeners coming back for another weekly dose of TARODCAST, welcome back. As y'all already know, at TARODCAST, you can take everything we say with a grain of salt. We simply just want to add some flavor to your meal. So if we're doing that, then we are doing our job. I've got a very, very touchy and even controversial episode for you guys today, because this episode actually stems from conversations that I've had regarding people's beliefs about how certain people make their money. And it's crazy. So without further ado, today's topic: sex work, the network, and their net worth. This is TARODCAST. Let's get it. All right, everyone. Welcome. Again, I am your host, TARODCAST, and you are listening to TARODCAST. I hope everyone is doing well during this time of social distancing and physical distancing. I know that for a lot of us, we have begun to grow used to and accustomed to this new normal of going outside, wearing masks, wearing gloves, washing our hands at every waking moment, all kinds of things. And I feel like because of the impact that coronavirus, COVID-19 has had, it is forcing us to really think about the things that we typically don't think about. It's funny because I actually saw some pictures and saw some reports about certain things happening just naturally and in the atmosphere, that because the majority of us are staying in, things are beginning to repair themselves. Skies are getting cleaner, and just places in and of itself, they're getting cleaner. And it's very interesting to think about just how much impact we really do have on the world. And so I hope that everybody is taking a moment just to understand their part and understand their role and take responsibility for this world, because we have to live here. And because we have to live here, we need to do everything we can to protect and also take care of the place that we live in. So with that being said, let's go ahead and handle our housekeeping duties. So if you are a person who enjoys podcasts and you'd like to take our show with you on the go, just know that we are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Podchaser, Castbox, Podcast Addict, iHeartRadio, Deezer, and YouTube. Now, you probably noticed there were two new platforms I mentioned, and yes, we are now on Podchaser and Deezer. So if those are your preferred podcast platforms, know that TARODCAST is now there. So if you want to take us on the go and that's your preferred way to listen, get all of your TARODCAST goodness on those platforms, as well as all the other ones that I mentioned, because we can go where you go now. And I'm glad that this list keeps expanding. It gives me hope for everything that we're doing here. So I'm very glad to even just announce that. Also, TARODCAST is on Throne. Now, Throne is a free live messaging application that allows us here at TARODCAST to exclusively reach our listeners. Make sure to sign up if you'd like to keep the conversations going after the episode. Throne is really cool because even from the Patreon standpoint, I am able to create specific throne rooms for my patrons based on their tier level. And they also get access to specific conversations that only they can have. And so I think it's really cool. I really enjoy the fact that this particular platform allows people to interact in so many different ways. Also, if you're looking for natural oils for ultimate hydration and care for your hair and skin, hit up The Resilient Lotus at www.theresilientlotus.com. And lastly, but certainly not least, if you are a lover of authentic, chunky salsas, make sure to reach out to Morenitas Salsitas. As always, all this information will be in our episode notes. Now, when it comes to this particular topic, and I want to approach it from a standpoint where we talk about the history of it first before we start going into my opinion. So just going over the brief history of sex work, and it's really not brief, but there are just some things that I really want to touch on. So as we think about it as a whole, the object, the thought of sex work is something that has existed since the literal dawn of time. Sex work has been a commodity that has been one of the greatest taboos to ever exist. Now, for those of you who like to look at it from a biblical history standpoint, there are some women here who were either sex workers or even played the role of a sex worker. And there are two main women that really stand out to me who I can just think of from the top of my brain. So like Tamar, for example, who posed as a prostitute to basically cement her spot in the lineage that ultimately led to Jesus being born. Now, when it comes to the genealogy of Jesus, you notice that oftentimes it's mostly men who are listed because they are the fathers. It's a very patriarchal system. And so when it comes to the women, they're very seldom mentioned, but you see that they play important roles because they are the ones who are giving birth to the children, who also give birth to more children that play a role in this particular process. I also think about Rahab, who is someone that people would consider a prostitute and a madam. And she hid Jewish spies when her city went under siege. She's also included in the genealogy of Jesus. Now, Rahab, she ran an inn. And so during those times, there were plenty of people walking in and out, engaging in their desires, and that's what she did. But yet she is also an important figure in the genealogy of Jesus. Now, when it comes to this particular type of thing, again, these are two of the women that for me, I can think of just like right off the top of my head. And with the Bible, again, being a patriarchal book that doesn't really dive too deeply into the lives of regular women, I can only imagine that the ones that we don't know about also have some very, very interesting stories. But even in these times, sexually empowered women were looked at as unworthy filth. But the thing is, men still needed them. One of the things I also think about is the fact that brothels and inns have always been a thing, and men going to brothels and inns have always been a thing. And it's never just the regular Joe Schmo run-of-the-mill men who are doing this either, but also men who have some semblance of status, power, or wealth. Now, when I think about this, I think about the fact that most men, let me say it this way, the most basic of men need sex, regardless of where they go to get it. There's plenty of films out here that depict the most honorable and distinguished of men trading that honor and distinction for sex. One of the ones that jumps out to me is Foxy Brown with Pam Grier. And I think about the fact that she infiltrated a brothel and she posed as a prostitute in order to enact revenge on one of the men of status that was in there. And when you see him in there, he's completely just vulnerable. He is ready to be taken advantage of by the woman that he is paying for. And that doesn't happen. It it ultimately culminates in him just being completely embarrassed. And it is one of the funniest things to watch, because Pam Grier, she doesn't even strip down. It's just so funny just to even watch how that plays out, because these are men who, outside of this place, they hold some sort of power. But to see them in that scenario, as vulnerable and as naked as can be, and then to know that men of all kinds engage in frequenting these places, it's so interesting. It's really interesting to me. And it makes me also think about the fact that it doesn't matter how the man thinks of the woman. All that matters is their satisfaction with the woman and the amount necessary to pay in order to receive that satisfaction. Most of the women in these scenarios, they understand their role and they play it out, because ultimately it is a business exchange. It's the same at strip clubs as well. Men from all walks go to the strip club and want to have the women there pay them attention in exchange for their money. And of course, the more money that's paid out, the more attention you receive. And if you're willing to shell out the bigger bills, you might even be able to customize your experience. I'm gonna just let y'all run with that when I say customize your experience, because we all know that a lot of things happen in strip clubs. A lot of people go to strip clubs, and they go there because the women are the entertainment. They take center stage, and also all the stages that are laid out in that particular venue. And so you're going there with the intent of receiving sexualized attention. And again, it's the men who need it and also who go towards it that I'm talking about here. Now, regardless of one's opinion of strippers, they are performing a service that, no matter who you are, will produce a product and a result for you once you pay for it. Now, let's also keep in mind the fact that sex is a product that is designed to guarantee its purchaser a release of endorphins when it comes to thinking about it in this sense. Okay? But only in this sense are we talking about the payout of money when it comes to the exchange of sexual favors or the fantasy associated with sex. And in the sex industry, it's not just women who have caught on to this, but men have as well, whether they are the ones behind the scenes running the show or they're out in front as a part of the show. It's an industry that many men and women see a lot of profit from. This is no lost fact. It is true. It is true. And simply put, people like sex, as taboo as it is. It's necessary for our survival as people. And because it's necessary, there are so many different ways to engage in this industry. We all know the websites. We all know the venues. Some of us even know the people. But there's nothing wrong with that. That's their life. Whether you choose to engage with them or not when it comes to this type of avenue, that's completely up to you. That's your freedom of choice. But for me, I care about sex workers. I care about what they do, because what they do, in my opinion, is still work. And in times like these, where everyone in our country is being told to stay home, I know that there are many sex workers who are capitalizing on their exclusive websites like OnlyFans or Cam Soda or ManyVids and God, there's a few others that I can't think of right now, but I know they're out there. But they're making money simply by existing and sharing their body with viewers and subscribers. And I don't find anything wrong with that, because that is their choice. If they believe that they have a product worthy of displaying to the world, then I believe that they have the entrepreneurial right to do so. And as customers, we also have the right to choose whether or not we pay for that type of service. That's just the power of the dollar. When you really think about it, you have the choice of if you'd like to engage and potentially purchase anything that this particular worker has to offer. And the thing is, as a consumer, there's nothing wrong with that. We're born to buy things that we like. That's why advertisements are a thing. That's why commercials are a thing, because they are enticing you to put money forth into their product. And that's just the way that the world works. It's capitalism. Make your product something that people want. Create that demand. And when you create that demand, you control the supply. And so because of that, I also don't find anything wrong with supporting sex workers either. If you've got the means and the desire to do so, it doesn't make you any less of a person. It just means simply that you like sex. That's it. There's nothing to be ashamed of, because don't we all? I mean, let's just be honest. Like, we all like it. We all love it. We all want to be engaged in it in some way, shape, or form. And so where we go to fulfill that particular desire is up to us. And that's just it. Most of us are adults. I hope that those listening to my show are adults, because when it comes to things like this, it's like we have the power and the freedom to choose. And so when it comes to making that choice of how we decide to engage in this type of industry, we have that freedom. Because we all like sex, right? So with that being said, I'm getting ready to take our first commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about sex work and net worth. So I hope you all are enjoying it thus far. Make sure you have your water close by, stay hydrated, and we will be right back. This is TARODCAST. Yo, what's good, everyone? This is your host of TARODCAST, Tarod Rashan, and I just want to welcome you to the commercial break. Now, you already know what time it is. It's hydration time. Get some high-quality H2O in your system now. Got a few things I'd like to go over. First, to all of our new and returning listeners, thank you so much for your ear and your time. To all of our Patreon supporters, I just want you to know that we are not able to do this without your direct support. So the biggest, dopest TARODCAST thank you goes out to you. If you're listening in and you're thinking about becoming part of the TARODCAST Patreon family, we'd love to have you. You can find us at www.patreon.com/TARODCAST. Now on Patreon, we have 3 tiers of support. A $2 tier, a $3 tier, and lastly, a $6 tier. Each tier comes with its own set of unique perks. So if you find one that fits you, sign up. For us, the main thing is keeping our subscription prices affordable. We know that you work hard for your money, and if you choose to support TARODCAST this way, we truly want to make it worth your time. To find out more about our Patreon and the perks with each tier, visit www.patreon.com/TARODCAST. We've got it all laid out for you. Also, we've got a merchandise store. Pick up some tees, hoodies, leggings, and more at forevercertain.redbubble.com. All proceeds go right back into the TARODCAST podcast and allow us to keep making high quality content for people just like you. For our listeners out there who would like to support us in a non-monetary way, we'd love that too. Share our show with people you know. Also, share us on your social media. And if your favorite TARODCAST streaming service allows you to rate and review our show and you're loving what you're hearing, take some time and leave us a 5-star review. Ratings and reviews are what set us apart from other podcasts, and also helps us to recommend our podcast to other listeners we otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity to reach. Lastly, if you'd like to reach out to us directly, email us at TARODCAST@CRTN-T.com. That's TARODCAST@CRTN-T.com. All of this information can always be found in our episode notes, so make sure to check there if you forget any of the information we just went over. Once again, thank you all so much, and let's get back to the program. All right, y'all, welcome back. I hope that y'all got hydrated, because this is a very hot topic, no pun intended. Actually, there was a pun intended there, but we're not going to go into that. I hope that you all are enjoying the show thus far. Now let's go ahead and get into the next segment. So now we're talking about sex work and net worth. Now, just going along with what I was saying before, a lot of people who engage with sex workers of any sort, there is the expectation that what you are paying for is going to yield a specific result. However, one thing that I've noticed is that there are a lot of people who shame sex workers. There are both men and women who believe that what sex workers do is immoral and it destroys families and relationships, yada, yada, yada. There are even people campaigning that porn ruins lives and porn addiction is something that they cannot control. Now, regarding my take it with a grain of salt opinion on this, I feel like a lot of this comes from inward shame and guilt, because many of us are not taught healthy ways to express ourselves sexually, because to do so may go against our traditions and our religious beliefs. Now, one of the things that I've also realized, even for myself, a while ago, is that there is a fear of being condemned and dishonored and robbed of your spiritual rewards. Like, that is a legitimate fear, and I get that. I know where that comes from. But many people don't understand just how necessary and vital sex is when it comes to our lives. There's a part of us that will always want to seek it out, that will yearn to seek it out. Oftentimes beginning once we mature past puberty. And to be honest with y'all, I was fairly young when I saw my first porn magazine. And even before then, I remember being in the single digit age range when I finally flipped to, well, here in Oklahoma, it was Channel 2 at the time. But when I finally flipped to HBO and saw some of the things on there that I saw, and again, I was fascinated by it, because I was like, what? I'm like, what is this? What am I viewing? It's like, what are people doing with their bodies? Like, even though I was so young and I didn't understand, it was something that really, really piqued my interest. And for some people, that might not be healthy when it comes to children. But for me, as far as what I know about myself, I am not someone who is this off the wall, sexual deviant or anything like that. And not to say that's wrong, or that people who are engaging in things that I don't necessarily think about are wrong. That's just who they are. But when it comes to me, it was such a fascination. It was something that literally carried over into my adult life, because just thinking about it, in essence, is just something that, for me, it's just really interesting. And so I totally get and understand how many people feel that sex is something to be done between a husband and wife in the marriage bed. But not everyone is built to like and do the things that we may require. The thing is, finding this out about yourself requires that key word, introspection, and questioning yourself. If you've been robbed of this because you've been taught that thinking thoughts like this are deemed impure, then you are effectively denying yourself the ability to learn more about yourself. So when it comes to sex workers, there are many out here who are thriving simply based on the fact that there are men out here who see something that they like, identify with, or want, and they shell out the cash to get more of it. And sometimes these men are fully realized men, and sometimes they're not, and they're trying to figure out who they are and what it is that they specifically like. And so if they stumble onto someone that they feel like they can connect with, and that strikes that sexually emotional chord, then they're going to run towards that. And the thing is, when it comes to that, when it comes to sex workers who actually have that connection with someone, or someone actually connects with a sex worker in this way, I don't believe it's a bad thing, because it's just giving you another avenue to express yourself in a way and in a manner that you probably didn't have available to you before. But one thing that I have also heard from men who regularly view porn or look at sex work as a whole, and they just kind of dissect it. One thing that I've also heard is some men who say, "Why pay when you can get it for free?" And to that, I laugh. I do a Synba laugh. Ha ha ha. Because if anything, I've realized that nothing is free. And so to say something like that, to me, and only me, it's completely preposterous. Because nowadays, your time equals money. And it can be just as valuable, if not more valuable, than your dollar. Now, the problem that I have in this type of scenario is that men who shame sex workers, who offer some sort of exclusivity to their specific product, seek to compare those people to what they probably see when they're looking for a specific kind of experience that's already been documented. For example, they may not subscribe to someone who owns a ManyVids webpage, who offers exclusive and customized video content for their viewers, but they'll quickly open up their internet browser and open up Pornhub and search for that same person or somebody like that person that they refuse to support, and they will believe that finding content like that is free. If there's one thing that I've observed, it's that sex workers are generally pretty savvy when it comes to marketing themselves as a business. They juggle multiple streams of income that typically pay out in dividends. Now, I'm not in anybody's pockets when it comes to thinking about the numbers that sex workers generate. But what I do know is that a lot of them are well off. And I applaud that, because you have taken this, you have taken this entire concept of creating a sexual experience, a virtual sexual experience, and you are able to capitalize on that. And I applaud that. I have no hate towards that at all. And the thing is, one man's thought process of watching something for free still translates into money being put into someone's pocket. But yet, it's also this kind of thought process that makes a lot of self-righteous folk think less of the women they watch and less of the women that they refuse to support with their own dollars. Now, I also believe that it is safe to say that these sex workers don't necessarily need these people, because business is booming with or without them. But when it comes to the social construct that is a man's thought process, ultimately it's laughable. Now, whether one wants to admit it or not, Sex workers have a level of freedom and control over their lives that the majority of people will never have. So it's not uncommon for the occasional jealous man or woman to downplay the importance of sex workers. Oftentimes, they want their life and their access to freedom and self-sufficiency, but are too scared or too prideful to go for it. But they still watch it. They still fantasize. They still contribute their time and their viewership. That's why sex workers, while not appearing on anyone's Forbes list right now, that might change in the future. Who knows? Who knows? But with the way that this country is run, I don't see it happening in the near future. But who knows? But while they're not appearing on anyone's Forbes list, they still have an individual net worth that far surpasses the regular person. And I feel like at the core of the regular person who is so vehemently against sex workers and protesting everything that they do, I feel like those people are jealous. They're jealous of it. And that, again, take it with a grain of salt. If you're not that person, then I'm glad you're not that person. But if you are that person, then that's how I feel. That's how I feel about it. And so with that being said, we're going to take our last break of this episode. And when we come back, we're going to talk about how sex workers are necessary. Because a lot of people don't want to think that sex workers are necessary, but they are. And I'm going to tell you, in my words, how they're necessary. So I hope you still have your water close by. We're going to take our last break of the show, and we are going to be right back. This is TARODCAST. All right, y'all. We are back from our last commercial break. I hope you all are always staying hydrated. Again, I can't have anybody listening to my show to be dehydrated. Don't be thirsty when you're listening to TARODCAST, because it does nothing but take your attention away from all of the important stuff. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the tail end of our show. And we're going to talk about how sex workers are necessary. They are necessary to this economy. They are necessary to our sanity. They're just necessary in general. So I applaud those who make the venture into becoming sex workers. There's a lot of resources as far as what I have been able to see from those who want to extend their knowledge in this industry to other people who may be looking to try and do this for themselves. There's a lot of resources out here that are shared that give people the tools and tips necessary to gain success and audiences fairly quickly. Because there's someone out here for everyone. There are people out here who love people who are petite. There are people out here who love people who have that figure eight shape. There are people out here who love the big beautiful women. Like, there is someone out here for everyone. And that's the dare I say it, the magic of it, because there's so many people out here who are finding success and who are creating these avenues for themselves by utilizing sex work as something that they can make all their own. And for those who decide to do that, I'm not mad. I'm not mad at that. You know, I don't find it despicable to support a sex worker, because if that's their job, then that's their job. If you like the product, purchase it. If you don't, then you don't. It's really that simple. Now, I know y'all remember those late night phone sex hotline commercials. Like, oh man, those commercials that would come on like right at 12, right in between like your favorite shows, depending on the channel that you were watching. And the girls are always laid in the bed and they have the phone next to their ear. They're always smiling and twirling their hair and talking all sultry and seductively. I know y'all remember those commercials. Those commercials existed because people like the idea of simulating sex over the phone. And there's nothing wrong with that. The only thing I find wrong is that people are scared to let their own freak flags fly, and they condemn others who have no fear in waving that flag, whether clothed or naked. People simply think that they are better or more honorable, or they have a more what's the word I'm looking for? They have a more readily available moral code that they can just access. And because they choose to engage in sex workers or porn or anything like that in certain ways, they feel like they're better. But the thing is, your engagement, period, makes you no different than anyone else. And I feel like it's time to own up to that. Because the unspoken truth is that sex workers get the majority of the population through some of the toughest times they may have ever experienced. Now, we have all heard and seen depictions of men hooking up with sex workers, and instead of having sex, they talk. And I feel like this is because this type of interaction is only made possible because sex workers have the power to control and create intimacy in its rawest form. They have the power to expose vulnerabilities, and because of this, many men who have never found a proper avenue to express their most vulnerable side, they turn to sex workers. I can only imagine that countless supporters who interact with their favorite sex workers, like who actually have access to them, they often find them therapeutic. Their level of freedom is refreshing, and oftentimes it's very comforting, alongside being completely separate from that viewer or subscriber's regular life. So what's the purpose of slandering sex workers then? Until someone can tell me that they just don't like sex, nor do they want to see sex displayed in any form, I simply don't want to hear it. Your words mean nothing. We all thrive on connection. That's the thing. We all thrive on connection. And sex is an intense form of connection, and we want it, regardless of where we go or to whom we go to get it. That aspect of our lives will never change. So if you have contributed to at least one view of someone's sexual product, you have no right to deem what anyone else does as better or worse. You're still an active contributor. So why not just own it? And if there is a sex worker that you like, support them. Why not? That's their small business. You'd want people to do the same for you if you owned a small business. You wouldn't want someone to come up to you and tell you, I don't want to pay for your product because I know I can go over here to get it for cheaper or to get it for free. You don't want that because you understand that that is money that is not going into your pocket, but going into somebody else's pocket. And no business owner wants to hear that. You know, we all have the right to decide where our time and money goes. But we don't have the right to judge others for what they do, how they spend their resources, or how they choose to live their life. We don't have any right to pass judgment on anyone. And that's the thing. Sex worker or not, we don't have that right. Just because you may believe that you are morally superior than a certain person, it doesn't give you the right to pass judgment on someone else. That just makes you the biggest idiot ever known to man, because you do not know how to value people. We're all different. We all have ways of contributing to this society. And the thing is, some contribute in ways that we like, some contribute in ways that we don't like. But it is not our prerogative to decide who is the better contributor, especially when it comes to thinking about sex workers. So with that being said, I really hope that this episode is one that allows you the opportunity to just reevaluate how you may even feel about sex workers. Again, you don't necessarily have to adopt my opinion because my opinion is my own. You can take all of this with a grain of salt. I say it at the beginning of every episode. You do not have to adopt the way that I feel. But when it comes to this, I come from an understanding of realizing, understanding, and appreciating that people are people and what they do is what they do. And so because of that, I don't think that we have any right to look at one person as better than the next. And even when it comes to this particular realm, I don't think it is acceptable to downplay someone who is offering something exclusive in favor of someone that already has a million videos on the internet that you can just type in your favorite porn website and find. Like, to me, that's crazy. That is crazy. You're still putting money in somebody's pocket whether you realize it or not. So stop kidding yourself, okay? Stop kidding yourself. At TARODCAST, we are proud because when it comes to sex workers, we support you. Do what you do. You are giving a valuable service to society. And if that is what you choose to do, then do it and do it with excellence. Figuratively and literally. But yeah, okay. That is our show. That's our show. Now, y'all know how to find us. Y'all know how to support us. Make sure that you leave us a 5-star review. And also, like I said earlier, take this conversation to Throne. Take it to our throne room. Links are in the episode notes, just like everything else. So, as you all know, I like to leave y'all with something, and I say this every episode. So I hope that this episode gives you that opportunity just to think about things in a different way. And hopefully I was able to provide a means to do that for you tonight. So wherever you are, whomever you are, I want to always encourage you to be more introspective and vulnerable with yourself. Know who you are, trust in who you are, and love who you are. Again, I just want to thank you all very much for listening. I appreciate you tuning in another week. And I hope that with everything that has been said today, that you make every effort to find and keep your peace. Till next time.